Okay, today we're going to talk about cycle syncing your business. And this is so fun because this is something that I haven't really seen any other Christian women talking about. But I think it makes so much sense that we Christian women should talk about this because God made us as women. God made us with bodies that have a cycle. And so this is a very normal part of life. This is a way that we can honor the way that God made us and designed us. And so when I first came across the idea of cycle syncing, if you're not familiar with it, it's the idea of understanding the four basic, you can see here, the four basic phases that you go through in your cycle, and the different kind of like energy that you have, the different kind of, and I don't mean that in a woo-woo way. I mean that in just like pure energy. And so a really easy way to kind of remember these four cycle elements are by the four seasons. This has been helpful for me because I don't really remember these words very easily. Menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, or luteal. But the way that I remember them is spring, summer, winter, fall. So you're basically just kind of going through that little season change, those four seasons every month. So menstrual is your winter, follicular is your spring, ovulation, summer, and luteal is fall. You're preparing again for winter, and then you go through it again. When I first came across this cycle syncing way of doing things, I was like, it was just cloaked in all of this stuff with like new age mysticism and weirdness and like, you know, your sacred womb and your divine energy and like all this stuff. And I'm like, ugh, like I do not want anything to do with that as a believer. I know that that's not how the world runs. I know that none of that is like good. So it was just, at first I was really turned off by it. I was like, this seems really strange, but I kept seeing it. And as I looked into it, I was like, this is something that we as Christian women should do because it's honoring the way that God created our bodies to operate. But we have to strip it of the new age weirdness, right? We don't want to be participating in paganism or anything like that. So that's what I want to talk about today. How do we look at this in a way that honors God, honors the way that God created our bodies and the way that God designed us to move through the world? And how can we do that in a way that isn't selfish as well? Because this is another way that this can go really poorly. Let me just start with going through the four seasons and talking about the different kinds of energy that you have in each season. And this is really important in business because as your energy ebbs and flows throughout the month, and it's going to be different every time. Like, I don't feel like it's always the same for me. It's just something to be aware of. I especially use this in my business, but it's true in my life in general, that my energy ebbs and flows a little bit throughout the month, and understanding that is really helpful. So like personal example, when I am in my follicular and ovulatory phase, those are when I feel more social and more relational. So I'll often make plans to hang out with people during those phases. And then if I schedule it out too far, right? Like I'm scheduling it out 3 weeks in advance or something, then by the time I'm actually getting to go do those play dates or those hangouts or whatever, I'm in my luteal or my menstrual cycle phase. And I do not want to hang out with people in those phases, not as much anyway. And so I often will regret that I made that decision because I don't feel like that anymore. And just understanding that I was going through that helped me to understand why I would make plans and then feel like, oh, I don't want to go to that thing now. You know, I made plans to go to this event or whatever, and now I don't want to go. So even just understanding like, okay, I'll notice like, okay, I'm going into this phase. I'm going to want to make a lot of plans, either make them for this week or don't make too many of them, you know, so that I'm not like burning myself out when I'm not as energetic later. So that's just a personal example, not really business related, but you can do the same thing in your business. Like, I'm going to post to Instagram, 3 times a day and make that plan in your follicular or your ovulatory phase. And then you get to luteal and menstrual and you're like, I don't want to post to Instagram at all, right? So it's very easy for you to make commitments in those phases and then regret making those commitments or have a hard time following through on those commitments later. So before we get further, I want to say one really important caveat to all this is I do not see this as a rule, right? This is not a law. This is not like, oh, I'm in my phase, so I can't do that. No. This is where just having awareness and understanding around this can help us to make better plans. It can help us to flex better as we go throughout our days, but we still need to honor our commitments. We still need to honor our friends. This is not like, oh, I don't want to hang out with people anymore for this week. No, like, don't do that. But just maybe don't make 5 meetings that day, you know? Like, so I think that this is helpful for understanding yourself. It's good for self-awareness. It is not something to use as an excuse. It's not something to use as a way to get out of responsibility. It's a way of working with the body that God has given you and created you, to how he's created you to operate. So that's my caveat on this. Please do not use this as a way to like get out of responsibility. That is not honoring to God. So there's these 4 seasons, these 4 phases that you go through. They're not the same length. So like you see here, menstrual 1 through 5. So this is days 1 through 5. Follicular days 6 through 14. Ovulation 15 to 20. So see, ovulation and menstrual are only 5 days long, whereas these other 2 are quite a bit longer. So these are not all the same length. They vary in length, and that was helpful for me to understand when I was first doing this. Now, before we go on, I just want to show you this reel because I was kind of looking up like examples of what I don't want us to do. This gal is like, I've just made self-care and cycle syncing my whole personality at this point. Okay, like this is not what we want to do, right? We don't want to be our whole personality is I'm, in this phase of my cycle or whatever. So don't do that. But here's what I do want us to do. I'm going to show you how I've built this into my Kingdom Focus dashboard. And will tee up a video for you to watch about how I use my Kingdom Focus dashboard, what it is. You can watch that next. But part of this dashboard that I use every single day as a Christian entrepreneur is understanding my cycle and where I'm at. You can see up here in the corner, it says my cycle phase is follicular, energy is ignite and innovate. Okay, so this is where I have this top of mind so that I can kind of look at my day and go, okay, so if this is my energy of I'm feeling very innovative in this season, or likely to feel innovative. So how can I maybe push off a few tasks that I could easily do in another week that maybe don't fit that energy, but maybe pull in something that does use that energy more, right? So that's how I use this. That's how I cycle sync my business. It is not like I build my whole business around this. It is just something that I'm aware of and I use to my advantage. So I'm going to take you down to the bottom of this dashboard where I have a whole document here about how I cycle sync my business. Because when I first started learning about this and going through this, I realized, okay, there's so much like weird stuff being said about this. There's so much selfishness around this. Like, how can I kind of like strip it of all that stuff and just get down to what are we talking about here? And how can I do this as a Christian woman? So I put cycle syncing is the process of tuning into your hormonal fluctuations throughout the month and scheduling your life around those fluctuations, again, as much as possible. With cycle syncing, you can adapt your fitness, nutrition, social calendar, and even work tasks around the different phases of your monthly cycle. So it gives you instructions on how to do it, and it tells you what your energy is likely to be in that phase. So like when you're on your period, you're going to need to rest more, most likely, and reflect. You're going to be in a reflective mood. This is where I like to do a lot of my writing because I have that like cozy feeling. I just want to curl up and just watch a movie, turn on some ambient music, light a candle, and just like pray, journal, write. Like that's a really good time for me to get into that mode. Follicular phase, ignite and innovate. So that's when you're kind of like in this new spring era and you're like, okay, like you got new energy. You're able to think about things and it's a good time to start stuff. Ovulation, communicate and collaborate. So this is where you're the most relational and you also have probably the most energy at this point. So if you're going to like film a course, let's say, doing it around this time, either follicular or ovulation, is probably your most ideal time to do that. And then in your luteal phase is fall, right? So this is a good time when things are winding down for your body. You're starting to go into that resting place, that more reflective place. And so as you're on your way there, you tend to have more energy around organization and outlining things. So this is a really good time to plan. This is a good time to like go back over your goals. This is a good time to reflect and look at, how did my social media do? Let me look at that. Let me assess things. Let me organize my office. Let me, those kinds of tasks are going to make a lot of sense in this phase. And then I have notes here for pregnancy and menopause. So I just want to show you like this does not have to be complicated. I wrote this out myself, and this is what I figured out, from my research, and it's just literally this long. That's it. It doesn't need to be long and comprehensive and clunky and overwhelming. Like, you just need a little bit of information, and then just use that to your advantage as you're moving through your weeks, as you're moving through your month, to go, okay, what is my energy this week? A practical example of this is last week I was entering into my menstrual cycle. And so I was going into that winter place and that winter season. And I had planned to record some YouTube videos, and I was just not feeling it. I was like, I don't even think these YouTube videos will be good. My energy is just so low. I am really struggling to even feel like I want to do this. It just does not match my energy. So I recorded one video because that's where, that's what I had capacity to do. And I wanted to honor that commitment. Like, I don't want to just like stop posting, right? So this is where we're not letting it run us. But I did take time. So I did take time to do one video, but then I kind of pushed all the rest off, and I was like, I'm going to do that next week, because now I'm in my follicular phase, and now I have this like new fresh energy. It's spring for me. And so I'm like, okay, this is fun. Like, I could pump out a bunch of videos, and I can create a bank now that I can use later and hopefully get caught up, or rather do a bunch ahead of time, create a bank, so that when I get to that phase again at the end of the month, and I'm in my menstrual phase, I won't have to worry about recording videos because I will have already done that. So this is where you can also think ahead and use that to your advantage as well. But so I just did one video, and then I pushed all the rest off, and I took more time to write during that time. I took more time to think about, okay, what is my strategy for this? Let me do some writing for this. Let me do a little more planning, more reflection, because that made sense for me. That's what I felt. It's what I felt like doing. It matched where I was at in my cycle. And I think this is helpful for us to understand as women, because we tend to hold ourselves to the standard that we hold men to. Men have a 24-hour cycle. So they go through hormonal changes, but their hormonal changes happen within a 24-hour period. Ours are like closer to a 24-day period, right? A whole month period. And so we're going through these cycle changes really slowly. We have weeks where we feel one way, weeks where we feel a different way. That's very different than the way that men operate. They are much more stable, much more like, I have this, I can force myself to do the same thing every single day. And so a lot of productivity and a lot of our expectations around productivity and how we work and how we move through business has been shaped by men, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Men are created by God to be that way, and that's a good thing. It helps them to be really good breadwinners because they can just like crank it out the same every day, right? But for us as women, we're more up and down, and we need to ride those waves a little bit more, and that's okay. God created us that way. So we can use this to our advantage in our business, but we do need to think ahead a little bit more. We do need to flex a little bit more, and that's fine. right? But just understand that about a lot of productivity and a lot of the way that we are taught to work is that that was designed for men, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but that might not work for you the same way that it works for your husband or your brother or your father or whatever, your mentors, your coaches. That might work well for them and it might not work well for you. So just use this as a way to be more aware of where you're at, be more aware of flexing a little bit more. And I found it really helpful. We don't have to be weird and new age and woo woo about this. This does not need to get strange. We do not need to talk about our sacred womb or, how we need to match the moon or anything like that. It's okay. Leave all that aside. God created you as a woman with a hormonal cycle, and that's good. That's biblical. So just use that. Don't make it more complicated than that. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. You can get access to this if you purchase my Kingdom Focus Dashboard, which I have here, and I will tee up a video for you about the Kingdom Focus Dashboard. It has literally been so life-changing for me and for my customers. This is a fan favorite. People rave about this. It is so, so helpful. So I will tee up a video for you about that so you can watch that next, and I'll see you there.